Peter Lynch is a true Wall Street legend. As the former portfolio manager of the Fidelity Magellan Fund, his average annual returns of 29.2% from 1977 to 1990 earned him the title of the King of Wall Street. When it comes to investing, Lynch is famous for saying, "Invest in what you know." He believes that researching and understanding the companies you're investing in is key to success. He also encourages investors to focus on stocks that are undervalued and have strong fundamentals. But Peter Lynch doesn't just offer investment advice. He is also well known for his philanthropic work. He founded the Lynch Foundation in 1991 to support education and health initiatives. Today, Peter Lynch's legacy lives on in the world of finance. His advice is still followed by many investors, and his philanthropic work continues to make a positive impact. So, Peter Lynch is definitely someone you should listen to, and here is his opinion.
The important thing is you can't get too attached to a stock. You have to understand there's a company behind it. You can't treat this like your grandchildren. You have to deal with the stock and say, I understand the company, and if it deteriorates, if the fundamentals slip, you have to say goodbye to it. Another key element is that you have plenty of time. People are in an unbelievable rush to buy a stock. I'll give you an example of a well-known company. Walmart went public in October of 1970. 1970 went public. Already had a great record. It had 15 years performance, great balance sheet. You could have waited 10 years saying you're a very conservative investor, you're not sure this Walmart can make it. You want to check, you see them operate in small towns, you're afraid they can only make it in 7 or 8 states, you want to wait till they go to more states, you keep waiting. You could have bought Walmart 10 years after they went public and made 35 times your money. If you bought it when they went public, you would have made 500 times your money, but you could have waited 10 years after Walmart went public and made over 30 times your money. You could wait 3 years after Microsoft went public and made 10 times your money. Now, if you knew something about software, I know nothing about software. If you knew something about software, you would have said, these guys have it. I don't care who's going to win, Compaq, IBM. I don't know who's going to win Japanese computers. I know Microsoft, MS-DOS is the right thing. You could have bought Microsoft. Again, I'm repeating myself, stocks are not a lottery ticket. There's a company behind every stock. And you can just watch it. You have plenty of time. People are in an amazing rush to purchase a security. They're out of breath when they call up. You don't need to do this. You need an edge to make money too. People have incredible edges and they throw them away. I'll give you a quick example of SmithKline. This was a stock that had Tagamet. Now you didn't have to buy SmithKline when Tagamet was doing clinical trials. You didn't have to buy SmithKline when Tagamet was talked about in the New England Journal of Medicine or the British version, Lancet. You could have bought SmithKline when Tagamet first came out, a year after it came out. Let's say your spouse, your mother, your father, you were a nurse, you were a druggist, you're writing all these prescriptions. Tagamet was doing an amazing job of curing ulcers, and it was a wonderful pill for the company because if you just stopped taking it, the ulcer came back. See, it would have been a crummy product if you took it for $1 and it went away, but it was a great product for the company. But you could have bought it 2 years after the product was on the market and made 5 or 6 times your money. I mean, all the druggists, all the nurses, all the people, millions of people saw this product. And they're out buying oil companies, or drilling rigs, It happens. And then 3 years later or 4 years later, Glaxo, even a bigger company, it's a huge company, a British company, brought out Zantac, which was a better, at that time, an improved product. And you could have seen that take market share, do well. You could have bought Glaxo and triple your money. So you only need a few stocks in your lifetime. They're in your industry. I think of people, if you'd worked in the auto industry, let's say you're an auto dealer the last 10 years, you would have seen Chrysler come up with a minivan. You've seen, if you're a Buick dealer, a Toyota dealer, Honda dealer, you would have seen the Chrysler dealership packed with people. You could have made 10 times your money on Chrysler a year after the minivan came out. Ford introduced the Taurus Sable, the most successful line of cars in the last 20 years. Ford went up 7-fold on the Taurus Sable. So if you're a car dealer, you only need to buy a few stocks every decade. When your lifetime's over, you don't need a lot of 5-baggers to make a lot of money starting with $10,000 or $5,000. So in your own industry, you're going to see a lot of stocks, and that's what bothers me. There are good stocks out there looking for you, and people just aren't listening, and they're just not watching it. And they have incredible edges. People have big edges over me. They work in the aluminum industry. I see aluminum industries coming down, inventories coming down. 6 straight months. They see demand improving. In America today, it's hard to get an EPA permit for a bowling alley, never mind an aluminum smelter. So when aluminum gets tight, you just can't build 7 aluminum smelters. So when you see this coming, you can say, wait a second, I can make some money. When an industry goes from terrible to mediocre, the stock goes north. When it goes from mediocre to good, the stock goes north. And it goes from good to terrific, the stock goes north. There's lots of ways to make money in your own industry. You can be a supplier in the industry, you can be a customer. This thing happens in the paper industry, it happens in the steel industry. It doesn't happen every week, but if you're in some field, you'll see a turn, you'll see something in the publishing industry. These things come along, and it's just mind-boggling, people throw it away. The important thing is you can't get too attached to a stock. You have to understand there's a company behind it. You can't treat this like your grandchildren. You have to deal with the stock and say, I understand the company, and if it deteriorates, if the fundamentals slip, you have to say goodbye to it. If one rule you want to remember is the stock does not know you own it. So don't get, you have to understand it and say they're doing well, and as long as they keep doing well, my best stocks have been my 5th, 6th, 7th year I own them, not my 5th, 6th, 7th day. So you have to understand that and stay with it. And then I'll switch through to my long shots. Avoid long shots. I bought about 30 long shots in my life. I've never broken even on one. The ones that are really bad are what we call whisper stocks. And if Arthur Levitt was here, he'd appreciate these stories. But these are the kinds that somebody calls you up and say, hi, Peter, how's Carolyn, how are the kids? And I'd like to talk to you about International Blivet. And what they have in this company is very good about the earnings. Earnings going to be very, they're going to be big, small. $3, $1 a share. And they keep whispering, they say, what are you talking about? I don't understand it. And these are, now either they're so surrounded by people that are going to run out and buy this stock because it's so exciting, or they think the SEC is listening in, they'll get a shorter term, they'll get 6 months in the camp rather than 2 years in the camp. But whisper stocks don't work. And then I want to conclude with there's always something to worry about. If you own stocks, there's always something to worry about. You can't get away from it. What happens in the 50s, people were worried about the only reason we got out of the Depression was World War II. We got another recession. In the early 50s, they said we're going to go right back into a depression. People were worried about a depression in the 50s, and they worried about nuclear war. I mean, back then, the little warheads they had then, they couldn't blow up McLean, West Virginia, or McLean, Virginia, or Charlestown. Now, all these countries that end in STAN, there's 9 of these STAN countries that have come out of Russia. They all have enough warheads to blow the world up, and no one worries about it. When I was a kid, people were building fallout shelters, and we used to have this civil defense drill. Remember this one in high school? You get under your desk. I never thought even then that was a particularly good thing to do. They'd blow us, some people in a hat would all get under our desk. But in the 50s, people wouldn't buy stocks, except for the 80s. The 50s was the best decade, the century of the stock market. And people wouldn't buy stocks in the 50s because they're worried about nuclear war and they're worried about depression. Then people, remember when oil went from 4 to 40 and it was going to go to 100 and we're going to have a depression? Remember that one? Well, about 3 years later, the same experts, now higher paid, oil's now at 10, and they said it was going to go to 4 and we're going to have a depression. And then the Japanese, remember how the Japanese were going to own the world? Remember that one? And that we're going to have a depression? And then about 2 years later, we're all worried about Japan collapsing. And this is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. There's a company with a 20% savings rate, incredible workforce, incredible productivity, and people are saying we're going to have a depression because Japan's going to collapse. And they had, on their prayer list, they load Mother Teresa and crippled children, and they were praying for Japan at night. It's unbelievable. I mean, the LDC debt. Remember the LDC debt? Remember that one? All these countries, all Chase had lent their net worth to Brazil, Chile, Peru, and all these other countries, and so and all the other countries. And LD said they were not going to pay it back, and we're going to have a depression. It always ends, and we're going to have a depression, or the Great Depression. We're going to have the Great Depression. I never could quite understand that adjective in front of depression, but the Great Depression, or the big one. The big one's coming. But all these countries, and now I understand. These are called then they were called less developed countries. Now we used to call them underdeveloped countries. Those are all wrong terms. Those are not politically correct. You have to call these emerging countries. You can't use less developed or underdeveloped because that's. In fact, the other day I heard the politically correct term for somebody that's overweight is laterally challenged. That's so there's always something to worry about, and the key organ in your body in the stock market is your stomach. It's not the brain. If you can add 8 and 8 and get reasonably close to 16, that's the only level of math you need to know. You don't know to need the area under the curve. Remember that quadratic equation and an integral calculus and the area under the curve? I mean, whoever kid was under the damn curve. I mean, you know, but you had to study this. You don't need this in the stock market. So all you have to know is you're going to see, it's always going to be scary. There's going to be always something to worry about. And you just have to forget all about it. Cut it all out and own good companies or own turnarounds. Study them and you'll do well. And that's all there is.